one of this, the aspects of this Research Associates mission statement talks about, we're trying to connect top educators with top schools.
My name is Brittany Caldwell, and I am currently an IB history teacher at the International School of Kenya. Just about 1 year ago, I was going through the application process myself, and here I am, just ready to give information to the next. I highly suggest Search Associates. It has just been seamless. From the beginning, truly to the end, I have felt supported by this agency, and I just recommend it to everybody. Would you like to start by introducing yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Sheena Novels. I'm the director of school associates. I'm new with Search. Up until July of this year, I was the head of school. I was head of Lincoln Community School in Atlanta. And so, I think I started out myself as a teacher candidate. I registered with Search Associates, and my husband and I and our kids went overseas at that point and didn't really look back. So I feel like I can answer a lot of these questions from my perspective, not only as like to be a teacher searching for a position too.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate what you're doing, Brittany, helping feed the pipeline of qualified, by teachers is wonderful. We need that. I've heard many, many heads of school, you know, wish that there were more qualified teachers of color available in the pool.
Yeah, we're pulling them out. We are pulling them out this go round. I mean, what is it that makes Search Associates to you such a great company as far as getting teachers where they need to be?
Sure. Well, I think number one, there are a lot of international schools out there, and the quality of those international schools varies a great deal. In 1999, when my husband and I took our first jobs overseas, we were surprised at how different that school was from our school back home in terms of many different things. And so you just want to know, is this a quality school, right? Search does a lot of work in vetting international schools. You have to become a member and go through a whole process of application and vetting to become a Search member school. So you can, be fairly confident that when you take a job at a Search member school, that it's not going to be a fly-by-night operation. We're going to hold that school accountable to honoring your contract with Fidelity. And that happens all too often where you take a job with a school and you get there and it's not what they've made it out to be. And, 2 months in, they change your contract and, you're not getting paid what you're supposed to be getting paid. And, if you're on your own, if you've taken a position through some of the other avenues, you don't necessarily have a recourse to go back to and say, hey, help me out here. We're not lawyers, we're not legal, we can't force a school, but we can certainly say to that school, hey, your membership is dependent on these general principles. And if you violated those, we'll as the owner, the founder of the organization used to say, we'll drum you out of the regiment.
Yeah, what are 3 characteristics of an ideal candidate? Things that you think make people stand out during the process?
Adaptability, flexibility, resilience. I think that's really important. That's a kind of a mindset of someone who's willing to live somewhere where things don't always work, right? You
Yeah,
live in
I
Kenya,
think that
Brittany,
is
you know that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think flexibility is a
Mhm.
big characteristic.
And then I also look for evidence that the person is a collaborator. Um, in the schools that I've worked at, we have really, really pushed that co-teaching model, the collaboration, and really looking for teachers who can articulate examples of how they collaborate. Because a lot of times, if you ask somebody, are you collaborative? They'll say, sure. But what that really means is, I'll invite you to my classroom and show you my bulletin board that I've made, or, give you a copy of this latest worksheet. But when
Yeah.
it actually comes down to co-designing learning for students, or moderating assessments, then it suddenly, my classroom, my practice, and the walls come up. And so really looking for evidence that that for people who are willing to deprivatize their practice in a school, I think would be really important. Yeah.
I agree. I think that's really great advice. What is some advice that you give to people during the interview process, just as far as your experience as a director, just things that you've
Sure.
seen or heard other directors kind of complain about?
Um, Relax, have fun, be yourself. I think what we're really trying to look for is evidence of who you are. And, I remember really clearly a head of school saying, and she was from the South, so I can do this act in my mind. I have her accent. All I want to know is, do I want that person in my space all day long?
Yeah. Mhm.
When you're in
Yeah.
an international school, you spend so much time together, right? Your colleagues, are your friends and your new little family. And so, someone who plays well with others and finding evidence of that, I think for me is something really important. I also want to find evidence that they know something about our school and our country, um, because again, if you've not done your research about the country, the school that you're applying to, it doesn't come across as authentically interested in our school. And we want to hire somebody who wants to come and contribute to our community and understands that they're a good fit. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for as recruiters is this a good fit? And if you aren't sure whether we're a good fit for you because you haven't done that research, it's very off-putting.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes it look like you're not really like invested,
Yeah,
probably, right?
right. And never complain about your current school or your current administration.
I
You know,
think that's
that
a big
also
one.
that also comes across really negatively. If you're having a bad experience where you are, find a way to say that, but I'm looking for new opportunities and ways that I can grow. I'm looking for a good fit for my pedagogical, philosophy, something, but don't, spend 5 minutes saying what a terrible principal you have and how your colleagues are, stupid and you hate the school
Yeah.
and the country you're in. That's just never gonna play well with an interviewer.
Like a lot of young people have these leadership degrees now, is it kind of like we want a little more experience on the leadership side?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, um, there's a lot we're looking for, a lot of words I would be looking for in a resume for a potential leader and sort of list all these experiences that you would have to have had. And so, you want to be able to provide evidence of those in your resume. It's not out of the question that as someone who's a teacher candidate or has been a teacher in the US, finding an admin role abroad, there's 800 schools in the search database. There's always somebody
It's
who
worth the
who
try. Mhm.
there's nothing truly far-fetched when you're looking at those kinds of odds, but it's not as typical, I've got to say. And don't be frustrated and don't be disappointed and be prepared to take a sideways move into a teaching position to get some experience overseas first.
Mhm.
And of course, respect those teacher leadership roles. I find often aspiring leaders aren't as excited by an opportunity to be a department head or a grade level leader or, a coordinator. Those are baby steps, so to speak, into administration. And they provide you lots of opportunities to get those experiences that I was talking about to put on your resume and say that, hey, I've developed curriculum, I've managed a budget, I've, da 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 da, all those kinds of leadership, job description bullets.
I think that is a great point, and that a lot of people just look at it, if it's not like the leadership team, I'm not leading.
Right.
Yeah, but you could still, that's a great point, you could still be a strong leader.
Think I've worked in some places where things don't always work, where you don't always have electricity or running water, and that can be a challenge. And how do you respond to that? How do you feel when that happens? And oftentimes, when I'm interviewing younger people, I say, give me a time where you were in a situation where things were really difficult, where you actually thought about quitting at one point because you were so challenged, you were so out of your comfort zone. And making sure that that person has reflected on those experiences and has taken some meaning out of those challenges and is applying them right now to them, their growth as a human. Um, and if they've never done that, if they can't give me an example of a time where they were out of their comfort zone or really challenged or, um, and have maturely reflected upon that, it gives me pause. I have second thoughts about that candidate.
Like, how has internationally teaching and being in the international education field just grown you personally? Like, what's one positive, just a couple of positive things that you can say that you've gotten out of this?
I'm far more patient. That's number one.
Yeah.
My grandmother often used to say to me that I was living this life to learn patience. And so I really feel that, that I've made choices that have allowed me to meet that goal. My grandmother would be proud. Because again, you really have to, you have to be patient and resilient at times. I think that I clearly, I believe, have a much deeper understanding of others and other cultures and appreciation for that. One of the things I recommend people do is read the book, The Culture Map, to really understand
I've
how,
never heard of that.
oh, it's a wonderful book.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Wonderful
write that
book.
down.
So, when you're having an intercultural conflict with somebody or conflict, how often you realize that this is really just an element of our respective cultures. I clearly remember one of my board members that I had, some friction with. He was very direct in his feedback, and as a Canadian, I tend to be very indirect in my feedback. And so we really had some clashes, but it wasn't, that he was a bad person. It's just he's coming from where he's coming from.
Ways of knowing.
Exactly.
Ways of knowing is such a thing. Yeah. Different.
Yes.
So it's just navigating through assuming the best in people, even if it's not being transferred to you in that manner.
Yes.
Yeah. I can't wait to read that book though. That sounds really good.
And to be honest, to me, the worst international educators are the ones that come to a country and spend the whole time with their noses in the air.
Yeah.
Like, oh, these people are so backward, and the way they do things here is just so silly. And that's not your role. That's not why you're there, to make judgments about another country, another culture, another group of people.
People have older parents and they're wondering, does that get factored into dependence?
No, that's a hard no. Schools, when you're bringing in a teacher, and this is true for most countries, you're arranging a work visa or a residency visa for that person. So the government would allow you to bring in dependent children, but it's very unlikely, I would say almost impossible, for them to bring in an older parent.
Okay.
Additional to that, schools have budgets, and your dependents cost money, and not all schools will even take dependent children for that reason, because of the additional costs of benefits for paying for children's tuition or housing or healthcare or flights. And so some will limit the number of children you can have, and some will just say, sorry, we're a small school with a really tiny budget, we can't even afford dependents at all. And so if you find a school that will take your kids, great. But certainly taking your parents along. I would add to that is not all countries have really stellar healthcare. And so if your parents are aging and they need you to care for them, quite likely they need access to healthcare as well.
That's a good
And
point.
so, I don't think
that's
it's something that you could risk. Yeah.
How do I make myself more competitive in the market if I do not have IB experience, which is most schools in America, especially, are AP College Board based.
Yeah.
And then when you go to apply, all these schools want IB.
I hear you. I faced the same thing for all the years that I was teaching, or a teacher candidate with Search. A lot of doors were closed because of that lack of IB experience. There's still a lot of good schools out there that aren't IB. So do a training. Part of a school's reluctance to hire a non-IB trained or experienced teacher is that there's a whole pedagogy around it. There's a whole assessment structure around it. And we don't even know if that aligns with your pedagogy. I've had teachers before who say, I don't like the NYP. I don't like the way they assess. Well, you took a job at an NYP school, so that's the way we do things around here. And we're not going to spend a lot of time, debating with you about whether or not this is the best way, because we've, done a lot of work till now, and this is who we are. And so That's really important, that you're able to articulate how your pedagogical focus and experience aligns with the IB. And so you've got to do your research and say, well, what does that mean? How does the IB assess? How can I give examples of how what I do aligns with that? So, you take a training and find out what it's all about, and then you'll be able to better frame your responses um, towards, towards that focus.
I'm like kind of picking your brain as a recruiter slash director, kind of. Do you prefer, is it kind of like they don't have international experience when it comes to hiring?
Sure. I, as a recruiter, was always looking for a mix. Teachers coming from the US or UK or wherever in the world, honestly, wherever in the world, they will bring new ideas to our school, right? If we only hired or recycled teachers within the international school ecosystem, we're losing out on that opportunity to find out what's happening in other places in the world. What's mainstream now in the US in terms of pedagogy? What are some of the new ideas about learning that are coming up? One of this, the aspects of this Research Associates mission statement talks about, we're trying to connect top educators with top schools. Leading schools and quality educators and bringing those together. And I think that's what does set us apart from some of the other recruiting options that teachers might find in front of them.
I love that. And what do you think when someone gets denied?
Yeah, quite frankly, it may be because they don't have certification or they don't have a degree, or they have 6 kids, and we just realized that the likelihood of them getting hired is low, right? Or the experiences they've had, they just don't have what we feel schools would be looking for. Ask for that feedback. Ask for the feedback, and then be strategic about, okay, this is the feedback I've heard about what they didn't see in my application or in my profile, and then work towards filling those gaps.
I think that's great advice. This has been really great, really informative. I think that it's just like so energetic. I think to see people in the flesh, kind of when you have these questions, we have the FAQ on Search Associates, of course, but no one wants to read. People just want to watch or ask you the same question that's in the FAQ. That's fine. Any just last words of advice for teachers going into recruiting season before we kind of wrap up?
Just don't go into this with, I really want to go to Europe, or these are the schools that I'm interested in. It rarely works out that way, right? It really works out that way. You've got to stay open-minded. You've got to stay geographically flexible. If you apply to certain schools and you don't hear from the recruiters, don't hear back, don't take that personally. Don't take that as, a rejection. Just recognize how the volume of applications that some schools get, just really is prohibitive often to getting a response back to everyone. Don't give up, just, apply again, and try to have fun with it, explore, do your homework. Yeah, all the things we've said so far, they're really important. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work trying to find a job, and you've got to, put the time in.
And you go in and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be here. I want to be here. And it just worked out that I ended up at ISK, and I am so happy that it happened that way. You just have to go in open-minded and let it flow.
Yeah. My husband and I, when we first started out, we were naive, and we said we really wanted to go to Southeast Asia. We had our heart set on Southeast Asia. 21 years of international education, and never, ever taught in Southeast Asia.
That's so great. Yeah. And then you found a home in Africa.
Yeah.
I love
it.
And
in the Middle East, we were in the Middle East for a long time.
Are you
Yeah.
I'm excited. Thank you so much. Thank
Pleasure.
you so much. I really appreciate it. I really have nothing but positive things to say about my experience with Search Associates. one and done, it was a quick process. I signed up late, like December, which people say that's like late in recruiting season, but everything happens seamlessly, professionally. You have your own consultant, like it just is so professional. And that's why I love to share about you all and just get
Thank you.
in. So
And with any luck, next year, the fairs will be back. And I would really encourage candidates without any international experience to attend a fair. I think that you will open up your eyes and your mind to the possibilities. And as well, I think that opportunity to make those face-to-face connections with people is really important.
Are they usually in the US or like all around?
They're all over the world. But there are several fairs in the US as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a fun excuse for a vacation for some work.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
All right. My pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed. Please let me know if you have any more questions and I will pass them on to her and hopefully get them answered for you.
Super.